The first thing I noticed wasn't the silence. It was the smell, faint traces of roasted turkey, cinnamon candles, and detergent. The kind of scent that should have meant family, laughter, and noise. But that morning it only reminded me of what was missing. I called out once softly just to be sure. "Helen." I expected my daughter's voice from the guest room, or maybe my grandson's footsteps thudding down the stairs. But nothing came back. Only the tick of the kitchen clock. Slow, deliberate, cruel. When your family turns your love into their weapon, silence stops being weakness. It becomes justice. Don't blink, because every second of this story leads to their reckoning. It was 8:14 a.m. The house should have been bursting with life by now. Thanksgiving morning was always mine to host. For 40 years I'd been the one basting turkeys, polishing silver, making sure everyone's favorite pie had its spot at the table. This year my daughter had insisted I rest. "Just relax, Mom," she'd said, taking the carving knife from my hand a week ago. "You've done enough all your life." I thought it was kindness. Now walking through an empty dining room I knew better. I saw the folded napkins still waiting on the table, untouched. The chairs were perfectly arranged, yet there were no coats by the door, no bags on the couch, no shoes kicked aside in a hurry. The stillness felt staged, like the set of a play that ended before the actors arrived. That's when my eyes caught something on the counter. A single postcard wedged under the salt shaker. The front showed a beach in Maui. On the back, 6 words written in my daughter's handwriting. "Don't worry, Mom, we'll call soon." My hand trembled, but I didn't drop the card. I read it again, slower, letting each word pierce me. They'd gone to Maui. Without me. My family, my daughter, my son-in-law, my grandson, all gone for Thanksgiving together while I stood here surrounded by leftovers in silence. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The betrayal didn't come as a scream or a breakdown. It arrived like a slow, cold wind, chilling, deliberate. They'd planned this. I could tell by the clean kitchen, the empty coat rack, the perfectly closed drawers. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd chosen to leave me behind. I sat down at the dining table, staring at the empty plates. My reflection trembled in the polished silver tray, my face softer now, lined by age, but the eyes, they still remembered every unspoken insult, every sigh when I talked too long, every "Don't worry, Mom, we've got it handled." I had ignored all the signs. They'd been treating me like an old photograph. Something you keep around for sentiment, not importance. I reached for my cup of tea from last night. Cold now. A thin film floating on top. I drank it anyway. The bitterness steadied me. I wasn't angry, not yet. Anger would have given them power. What I felt instead was clarity. That clarity made me stand. Slowly, my knees stiff from the cold floor. I began walking through each room one by one. The guest room smelled faintly of her perfume, lilac and something expensive. I opened the closet. Empty hangers. They'd taken everything, even their luggage tags from last year's trip to Boston. My grandson's room was next. His toys, gone. Only the old teddy bear I'd sewn decades ago sat on the bed, one button eye missing. I picked it up and smiled. "Guess it's just you and me, huh?" Downstairs, the answering machine light blinked. One new message. I pressed play. My daughter's cheerful voice filled the kitchen. "Hey, Mom. We decided to do something different this year. A little family getaway. Don't worry, we'll FaceTime tonight, okay? Love you." Then laughter in the background. A man's voice, my son-in-law, saying, "Tell her to keep the house warm." Then the beep. I stared at the machine for a long time. Keep the house warm. The words echoed sour in my chest. That was it, my role now. The caretaker of walls, the keeper of their comfort, the woman who stayed behind. But they didn't know something about me. Something I'd never told anyone. The deed of this house, the one they thought would one day be theirs, wasn't just mine. It was protected, shielded, locked in a trust my husband had set up years ago. They'd spent years assuming it would pass smoothly into their hands. But I'd already made changes. Quietly, wiggly, irreversibly. I walked into my husband's old study and opened the drawer under the lamp. The documents were still there, sealed in an envelope marked "Transfer, Executed." My fingers brushed the edges, and for the first time that morning I felt steady again. I hadn't planned revenge. But maybe it had already begun. Months ago, when I decided to stop being everyone's safety net. The sunlight broke through the curtains, dust dancing in the air like tiny ghosts. I looked around the study. The framed family photos, the awards, The wooden clock that had ticked through births, deaths, graduations, heartbreaks. I realized this house wasn't a home anymore. It was a stage where I had performed the role of mother, provider, peacemaker. And now the play was over. A knock startled me. I turned heart-skipping. But it wasn't them, it was Mrs. Patterson from next door. She held a pie covered with foil. "Happy Thanksgiving," she said, stepping inside without waiting. Her eyes scanned the empty space. "Where's everyone?" I smiled faintly. "Gone." She blinked, unsure. "Oh, gone out for groceries?" "To Maui," I said flatly. The shock on her face almost made me laugh. "Without you," she whispered. Apparently I needed rest. I took the pie from her hands and set it on the counter. "Coffee." We sat for a few minutes, her trying to offer pity I didn't want. "You poor thing," she murmured, "after all you've done for them." "Don't feel bad for me," I said, pouring her coffee. "They've done me a favor." She looked puzzled, but I didn't explain. How could I tell her that something inside me had shifted? That the quiet wasn't loneliness, it was freedom knocking at my ribs. After she left, I cleaned the table. Fully. Deliberately. Every motion felt like shedding a skin I'd worn too long. I washed the dishes one by one, letting the sound of running water drown out every "Mom, can you?" and "You don't understand." Outside, leaves rustled against the porch. The world kept moving even when your heart paused. I found myself humming, the same tune I used to sing to my kids when they were scared of thunder. It felt strange, reclaiming a song that used to belong to comfort. By noon I'd opened all the curtains. Sunlight filled the rooms that once hid so many secrets. The late-night arguments, the fake smiles over dinner, the guilt trips wrapped in love. I saw it all now, and it didn't hurt the same way. It just looked small. Then my eyes fell on the framed family photo by the staircase. Last year's Thanksgiving. My daughter's arm around me, her husband holding the carving knife like a trophy. I picked it up, studied their faces, and quietly placed it face down on the shelf. The phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A man's voice replied, polite and businesslike. "Mrs. Davis? This is Mark from Patterson Realty. Just confirming. Are you still interested in listing your property? We spoke a few months ago." I glanced at the postcard still sitting on the counter, then at the sunlight warming the walls that no longer felt like mine. My lips curved. "Yes," I said. "List it." There was silence on the other end, then papers shuffling. "We can have someone there this afternoon to start the process." "That'll be fine." When I hung up, the air felt different, alive, almost electric. Not from rage or sadness, but from purpose. I didn't slam doors or curse anyone. I just sat down, folded my hands, and let the hum of the refrigerator fill the room. It sounded almost like applause. Later that evening, as the light dimmed and the streetlights flickered on, I stood at the window watching families return home, arms full of groceries and flowers. Laughter drifted across driveways. The world was celebrating. Mine was resetting. I whispered, barely audible, "They think I'm waiting for their call." I smiled. Let's see who calls who. Then I turned off the lights, leaving the postcard on the table where they'd find it someday. A reminder of the day they left me behind and the moment I began again. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, I decided what tomorrow would be. Not another day of waiting. A beginning. When the first gray light filtered through the blinds, I was already up, robe tied tight, hair pinned back. The kitchen felt different, not mine, not theirs. Just a space waiting for a decision. I brewed coffee strong enough to sting and sat at the table with my notebook. I didn't write feelings. I wrote lists. Rooms to empty, numbers to call, papers to sign. I had spent my whole life organizing other people's chaos. It felt almost holy to organize my own. By 8, the realtor's number was still on my phone from yesterday's call. I hovered my thumb above it, then pressed dial. "Mrs. Davis," Mark answered, cheerful, professional. "Good morning. Ready to start?" "Yes," I said. "Come by after lunch." There was a small pause, like he expected hesitation. "That soon?" "I'm 72, I said quietly. "I don't like waiting." After hanging up, I set the phone down and began my tour. The house seemed to breathe differently now, aware it was being watched. The living room came first. Sunlight stretching across the rug, catching dust motes mid-air. The couch still held the faint scent of my daughter's perfume. I opened the side drawer, pulled out the stack of family DVDs and dropped them into a cardboard box. No hesitation. Memories were heavy. I needed space light enough to carry. In the hallway I paused at the mirror. The woman staring back at me didn't look fragile. Tired, yes. But there was something sharper behind the eyes, something that had slept for too long. "We're not victims anymore," I whispered to my reflection. My voice surprised me. Calm, steady, deliberate. The doorbell rang around 11. I wiped my hands on my apron and opened it to Mark, clipboard in hand, gray coat damp from drizzle. "Morning, Mrs. Davis." He glanced inside, polite curiosity masking surprise. "You've already started packing?" "Just clearing what doesn't belong," I said. He smiled nervously, unsure whether I was joking. "Well, that makes things easier." We walked room to room. He spoke about square footage, natural light, market interest. I nodded in all the right places but hardly heard him. My mind traced a different architecture, the emotional map of this house. The wall my husband painted the summer after his heart attack. The floorboard that creaked where my daughter used to sneak in late. The window I watched snow through while holding my newborn grandson. I'd lived entire lives within these walls. Selling it wasn't loss. It was extraction. Mark stopped near the staircase. "Do you need time before listing?" "No." I handed him a folder. Trust papers, maintenance receipts, all pristine. "List today." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "You know, most people hesitate when it's their family home." "Most people aren't me," I said, and that ended the conversation. When he left, the drizzle had turned to rain. I stood on the porch, feeling it cool against my cheeks. The driveway looked emptier without their cars, but emptiness had its beauty. Space where truth could breathe. Inside, I called the moving company next. A young woman answered, brisk but kind. "Any special instructions?" she asked. "Handle everything carefully," I said, then after a pause. "But don't label the boxes by room. Just by number." "Got it," she replied. She didn't know that labeling by room would have meant labeling by memory, and I wasn't ready to read those names again. The next few hours unfolded in quiet rhythm. I moved through each room like a curator closing an exhibit. Every object held weight. The crystal vase from our wedding, the chipped mug my husband favored, the quilt I'd sewn when money was tight. I kept what was truly mine. A handful of photos, one letter, a small wooden box. The rest went into donation piles. Freedom, I was learning, isn't built by keeping things. It's built by releasing them. Around mid-afternoon, Mrs. Patterson reappeared with another pie. She hesitated at the doorway, umbrella dripping. "You're serious about leaving?" "I'm serious about peace," I said. She frowned. "But where will you go?" "I'll know when I get there." Her eyes softened. "You've got courage, Margaret." I smiled faintly. "No. I've got nothing left to lose. That's different." When she left, I covered the pie and slid it into the fridge. Maybe I'd eat it later. Maybe not. For the first time in decades, I didn't owe anyone an answer. By evening, the movers arrived. 3 young men with easy smiles and muddy boots. "Evening, ma'am," one said. "Where should we start?" "Upstairs," I told them. "Don't worry about noise." As they carried boxes down the stairs, the sound filled the house. Thuds, laughter, footsteps. It reminded me of family gatherings long ago, except this time the chaos belonged to me. While they worked, I sat at the dining table signing forms. Each signature felt like closing a door softly without anger. One of the movers paused, holding a framed photo. "This goes too." I looked up. It was my daughter's wedding picture, her smile wide, his hand on her waist. For a moment I almost said keep it. But I simply nodded. "Box 4. He slid it in without question. By nightfall, half the house was bare. I brewed another pot of coffee and watched the rain slide down the window. The movers left, promising to return at dawn. When the door shut behind them, I turned off every light except the lamp beside my chair. The quiet felt heavier now, but not cruel. It was honest. I opened my notebook again, adding one last line under tomorrow's tasks. Call lawyer. Finalize closure. My husband had always said I overplanned. Maybe he was right. But planning was how I survived. The steady rhythm against chaos. At some point, exhaustion pulled me toward sleep. I dozed in the armchair until the phone rang, sharp in the silence. It was close to midnight. I answered, half awake. "Mom." My daughter's voice, light, distant, waves crashing faintly in the background. Just wanted to wish you happy Thanksgiving. Did you eat? I swallowed. I did. That's good. We'll bring souvenirs when we get back. That's thoughtful. She laughed. Don't sound so formal. We'll see you soon, okay? The call ended before I could reply. The click of the disconnect echoed like a slammed door. I stared at the receiver for a long time, then set it down gently. I woke to the sound of knocking. Not gentle, insistent. Heavy. The kind that shakes dust loose from the ceiling. My first thought was that the movers had come early. My second thought, the one that crawled up my spine, was that it wasn't them. The morning light was sharp, the kind that exposes everything. I tied my robe and walked slowly toward the door. Through the frosted glass I saw silhouettes. 2 adults, one smaller figure behind them, luggage piled at their feet. My stomach went cold before my mind caught up. They're back. I didn't rush to open the door. I just stood there, breathing, listening to their muffled voices. My daughter's tone carried first, high, irritated. I told you she'd be home. Then my son-in-law's deeper voice. Yeah, well, she better be. The sound of their entitlement was almost familiar. Almost comforting in its predictability. When I finally turned the knob, the door opened just enough for daylight to slice between us. My daughter's expression shifted the moment she saw the empty hallway behind me. Her smile faltered. Mom, what's going on here? She asked, eyes darting past my shoulder. Why is everything packed? I didn't answer. I let her words hang in the air, like steam that would soon fade. Behind her, my grandson clutched a stuffed toy and looked confused. Grandma, he whispered. His innocence was the only pure thing on that porch. I stepped aside. Come in, I said quietly. They entered, dragging suitcases across bare floors that once held rugs and furniture. My daughter stopped halfway through the living room. Her heels clicked against wood, echoing in the emptiness. Where's the couch? She asked, spinning slowly. Where's everything? Her husband frowned, walking toward the dining room. Why is there a for sale sign in the yard, Margaret? I folded my arms. Because the house is for sale. The silence that followed was exquisite. Heavy, thick, full of disbelief. My daughter blinked rapidly as if she'd misheard. You're joking. I don't joke about real estate, I said. Her voice cracked. But this is our home. You can't just. It was my home, I interrupted softly. Now it's something else. They both started talking at once. Excuses, questions, outrage layered over each other like noise from a broken radio. I heard phrases drift through. Unfair, you didn't tell us, we were only gone a week. But none of it reached me. I watched their mouths move and realized how small they looked. People caught in the act of discovering they'd misjudged someone they thought powerless. My grandson tugged my sleeve. Grandma, where's my room? Packed, I said gently. But your teddy's still here. I handed it to him from the side table. He hugged it tight, eyes wide with confusion. I bent down and whispered, everything's okay, sweetheart. Grown-ups just forget things sometimes. While he wandered toward the kitchen, my daughter rounded on me. You can't do this without talking to us first. We're family. I smiled thinly. Family talks before they fly to Maui and leave the person who raised them behind. You forfeited discussion. Her husband stepped forward, voice hardening. This is overreaction, Margaret. We just wanted a break. From me, I finished. You wanted a break from me. He opened his mouth to deny it, then shut it again. The truth had already settled between us. I turned toward the window. Outside, the realtor's flyer fluttered in the cold breeze. I made a decision while you were gone, I said. I'm moving on. The house is listed. Offers are coming in. My daughter's face flushed red. And where are we supposed to go? I turned back slowly. You have your home, don't you? The one you said you'd take over someday? She blinked, realizing her own words had returned to her like a mirror she couldn't escape. Mom, you can't sell this out from under us. This house, it's part of our future. That's what I thought, I said. But apparently I'm not part of yours. For a moment none of us spoke. Only the sound of the clock filled the silence, steady, merciless. Then came the sound of papers crumpling. Her husband had found the realtor's folder on the table and was rifling through it. You already signed everything? He said, voice rising. You legally sold it? Not yet, I said. But the process is irreversible. He tossed the folder down. Unbelievable. You're losing your mind. I felt something flicker inside me, not anger but clarity. No, I said quietly. I finally found it. My daughter's tone softened suddenly, the shift almost theatrical. Mom, please. Don't do this. Think of Jake. She gestured toward her son, who was now playing with a spoon on the kitchen floor. He loves this house. You'll break his heart. I looked at the boy, small and innocent, untouched by his parents' greed. My heart did ache, but not enough to stop me. I'm teaching him something important, I said. That love without respect turns to rot. Her husband scoffed. Oh, come on. What are you even talking about? I stepped closer until we were nearly face to face. You think I don't hear the way you talk about me when you think I'm not around? The jokes about inheritance? The bets you make about how long I'll last? His eyes widened, a flash of guilt gone as quickly as it came. That's ridiculous. No, I said. It's recorded. I tapped the small device tucked under the lamp. My late husband's old voice recorder, now filled with their laughter from that last dinner before they left. You left it running. The color drained from my daughter's face. You recorded us? I kept evidence, I said simply. A woman alone learns to keep proof. Her husband cursed under his breath, pacing. My daughter sank into the single chair left in the room, burying her face in her hands. For a brief second I almost pitied her. Almost. The front door creaked open again. Mark, the realtor, stepping inside nervously. Oh. Sorry, Mrs. Davis, I didn't realize you had. It's fine, I said. You're right on time. He froze, sensing tension. We received a full-price offer this morning. I just need your confirmation to proceed. My daughter leapt up. You're not serious. I am, I said. Mark, go ahead. He glanced between us uncertainly. Should I come back later? No, I said. Tao is perfect. He nodded and began laying out papers on the table. My daughter's husband snatched one, scanning furiously. You can't sign this. We'll fight it. Then fight, I said calmly. But you'll lose. My daughter stood trembling, tears streaking her makeup. Mom, please. This isn't you. You're right, I said. This is the me you created, the one who stopped asking for permission. Mark handed me a pen. I could feel both of them staring, waiting for me to falter. My hand didn't shake as I signed. The pen slid smoothly, ink shining briefly before drying. One line that severed decades of expectation. When it was done, Mark packed the papers and left quickly, relief in his eyes. The moment the door clicked behind him, the house erupted. You're insane, her husband shouted. We'll call the lawyer. We'll contest this. You already did, I said quietly. 3 years ago, remember? The last time you tried to put my name on that refinance form you accidentally prepared. He froze. My daughter turned slowly to him. What is she talking about? His jaw tightened. Nothing. Not nothing, I said. Fraud. I never reported it. But I kept the documents. Her eyes widened with horror, not at me but at him. You forged her name? I said it was nothing, he snapped. The argument exploded between them, words sharp and ugly. I stepped back, letting it burn. I'd spent years mediating their tempers, smoothing over damage. Now I let the chaos be theirs. My grandson peeked from the kitchen doorway, frightened. I knelt, opening my arms. It's all right, sweetheart, I whispered, guiding him toward the porch. Let's get some air. We sat on the steps, the evening light cooling into amber. He leaned against my shoulder. Are Mommy and Daddy mad? They're learning, I said softly. Sometimes learning hurts. Inside, their voices dropped to hisses and then to silence. The quiet that followed was the purest sound I'd ever heard. When I went back in, they were gone, the front door left ajar, their suitcases missing. A note lay on the table, scrawled hastily, "We'll talk when you're thinking clearly." I folded it once and set it beside the signed papers. The irony almost made me laugh. For the first time in years, I was thinking perfectly clearly. Night crept in as I locked the door again. The air smelled of rain and ink and freedom. I turned off the lamp and stood in the dark, the outline of the sold sign visible through the window. My reflection stared back, not angry, not triumphant, just steady. They finally saw me, I whispered. Even if it broke them. The house was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence. Not abandonment, but arrival. The house was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence. Not abandonment, but arrival. I stood in it for a long time, letting the quiet settle into my bones. Every heartbeat sounded louder, steadier. I thought the hardest part was over. I was wrong. By morning, the phone started ringing. The first call was from my daughter. I didn't answer. The second came from an unfamiliar number. My son-in-law's office, maybe a lawyer, maybe just one of his attempts to scare me. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a third, the tone clipped, professional. I recognized Mark's number. Mrs. Davis, his message said, there's some confusion from your family. They called our office early this morning, asking to reverse the sale. I told them it's legally binding, but they seem persistent. I smiled faintly. Persistent, that was one way to describe them. The same persistence that used to guilt me into babysitting on my bad days, into lending money, just until next month, into forgiving words I shouldn't have. I'd taught them that persistence worked. Maybe this was their lesson too. I brewed coffee, the scent filling the kitchen. The mug felt heavy in my hands. Outside, the sold sign stood tilted from last night's rain. I should have felt triumphant, but instead something quieter. A strange blend of peace and unease. Freedom always comes with echoes. I spent the morning cleaning, something mindless to keep from overthinking. Dusting shelves that would soon belong to someone else. Wiping down the table where arguments once ended in awkward apologies. Each motion was slow, deliberate. Not mourning, not nostalgia, just a ritual of closure. Then came another knock. I froze, rag still in hand. Through the window, I saw my daughter's car in the driveway. The same beige sedan she'd proudly bought with my co-signed loan. She was alone this time. I almost didn't open the door, but curiosity got the better of me. When I did, her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. She didn't wait for an invitation. Mom, we need to talk. I don't think we do, I said, but she pushed past me anyway, walking straight into the kitchen like she still owned the place. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice trembling between anger and desperation. You're punishing us for a vacation? For trying to have some time to ourselves. I leaned against the counter. It wasn't the vacation, I said softly. It was the years before it. She blinked. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, you stopped seeing me a long time ago. You see my house, my money, my time. But not me. Her mouth tightened. That's not fair. Neither was leaving me alone on Thanksgiving, I said, voice calm but sharp. You didn't forget me. You chose not to invite me. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, her face softened, the daughter I remembered flickering through. It wasn't meant to hurt you, she whispered. We just thought, maybe you needed space. I almost laughed. Space is what you give strangers on a bus, not your mother on a holiday. She dropped her eyes. He said you'd understand. But there was he. The husband who always smiled too wide, who handled the finances, who thought kindness was weakness. I'm not angry, I said after a moment. I'm awake. There's a difference. She exhaled shakily. You can't sell the house, Mom. Jake needs stability. We can't afford to buy something right now. At least give us time. I studied her face, not cruel, just lost, so certain that the world owed her comfort. You have time, I said. Just not mine. That broke her composure. Tears came fast. She reached out, gripping my arm like a lifeline. Mom, please. I know we've made mistakes, but this is too much. Her touch was warm, familiar, guilt-ridden. For a second I almost softened. Then I remembered the years of silent dismissals, the quiet manipulations disguised as concern. I gently pried her fingers away. You always said I'd done enough, I whispered. Now I'm finally listening. Her phone buzzed. She looked down, then turned the screen toward me. It was her husband, a message flashing. Tell her the lawyer's ready. He can still change her mind. My heart went cold. You came here for him, I said flatly. No. I came because she began, but I held up a hand. Stop lying to both of us. Her shoulders slumped. He wants what's fair. Fair, I repeated, almost amused. Fair is you leaving me to eat alone while you flew across the ocean. Fair is me finally doing something for myself. She looked around the half-empty room, her tears slowing. You've changed, she said. I had to, I replied. You taught me how. She turned toward the door, trembling. If you go through with this, you'll regret it. I watched her leave without another word. Her car engine roared, gravel spitting under the tires as she drove off. I stood there until the sound disappeared completely. The clock ticked on. The coffee had gone cold again. The rest of the day passed in slow waves. Every ring of the phone went unanswered. Every sound of wind against the window felt like the house breathing its last days. Late afternoon sunlight hit the realtor's flyer still on the counter. I traced the edge of the paper, the price printed neatly beneath the photo. Freedom quantified. As evening fell, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my husband's old box. Inside were the keepsakes I'd saved. A photo from our first Christmas, his cufflinks, the pocket watch he never left home without. Beneath it, folded in yellowing paper, was the last note he wrote before the stroke took him. Take care of yourself the way you took care of us. I read it twice, then again slower. He'd known even then how easily I gave myself away. The phone rang again, this time a different tone. I picked it up, half expecting another confrontation. Mrs. Davis? A male voice asked. This is Officer Miller with the county precinct. Your daughter filed a complaint. Something about property dispute. We just wanted to confirm you're all right. I closed my eyes. I'm fine, officer. Just a misunderstanding. He hesitated. Do you need a welfare check or mediation? No thank you, I said firmly. Everything's under control. When I hung up, my hands trembled slightly. They were escalating. It didn't surprise me, but it did hurt. Not the betrayal itself, but how predictable it had become. Later that night, I sat by the window watching lights flicker across the neighboring houses. The world outside went on. Dogs barking, dinner smells drifting through the air, laughter from across the street. Ordinary life, untouched by my storm. I wondered what my neighbors thought, if they'd seen the for sale sign and whispered over fences. I didn't mind. Let them think what they wanted. Truth wasn't for them. A rustling noise broke my thoughts, outside near the porch. My heart skipped. I switched off the lamp, moving quietly toward the door. Through the curtain I saw a shadow near the mailbox. Someone slipping an envelope inside, then walking briskly to a car. The taillights glowed red before vanishing down the road. I waited until silence returned before stepping out. The air was cold, sharp. Inside the mailbox was a thick white envelope with no return address. I took it inside, sat down and opened it slowly. Inside were photographs. Printed, not digital. Me at the grocery store, me in the yard, me talking to Mark the realtor. The last one was from that morning. My daughter leaving the house. I stared at them, heart thudding. Then I saw the note tucked behind them. You're making a mistake. We're not done yet. No signature. But I knew that handwriting. His. I felt my breath catch, not from fear but from realization. This wasn't just guilt anymore. This was control slipping away from him, and he was fighting to grab it back. I placed the photos neatly back in the envelope, sealed it again and slid it into the drawer beside me. Let him try, I whispered. The next morning I woke before dawn. The sky was gray, heavy with rain. I brewed coffee, put on my coat and walked outside. The sold sign had fallen overnight. Wind or something else, I couldn't tell. I picked it up, pressed it back into the soil until it stood firm again. Then I looked toward the road where their car had disappeared last night. For the first time I didn't feel dread. I felt anticipation. They thought they could scare me into reversing what I'd done. But they still didn't understand. You can't threaten someone who's already lost everything once. As I went back inside, my phone buzzed with another message. We need to talk. Urgent. I deleted it without reading the rest. Then I sat at the table, pen in hand, and began writing letters. One to my lawyer, one to my grandson, one to myself. Each word was an anchor, tying down the pieces of who I used to be before they drifted away for good. By noon, the sun broke through, scattering light across the bare floors. The house felt smaller now, but lighter. I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of them, not of being alone, not even of what might come next. The aftershock had passed. All that remained was clarity. Still, something deep inside told me the storm wasn't done. Not yet. I folded my letters carefully, slid them into envelopes and placed them on the mantel. Then I whispered to the empty house, if they come again, let them see what they built. And I waited, calm, steady, ready. The afternoon light shifted across the walls as if time itself was deciding whether to stay or move on. For once I didn't rush it. I just sat there, breathing, the envelope edges glinting faintly in the sunlight. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. Tires crunched on gravel. I knew that sound before I looked. Their sedan. I didn't rise immediately. I wanted them to come in and feel the silence first, to realize what they'd made of it. The front door opened without a knock. My daughter's voice called out, uncertain this time. "Mom." I stayed seated at the kitchen table, pen still in my hand. They followed the sound of their own echoing footsteps until they saw me. Her husband was behind her, expression cold and forced into politeness. My daughter looked smaller now, tired, her eyes darting between the packed boxes and the sold papers stacked neatly on the counter. He spoke first. "This has gone far enough." "Almost," I said. "But not quite." He walked closer, hands on his hips. "You think you can humiliate us like this? You'll lose everything. The house, your savings, will make sure of it." I smiled faintly. "You can't take what's already gone." He blinked, confused. My daughter frowned. "What do you mean?" I turned the small key sitting on the table toward them. "Do you know what this opens?" I asked. Neither answered. I rose, slow and deliberate, the wooden chair creaking behind me. "It's the lockbox at the community bank. The one your father set up before he died." I walked to the mantel and picked up one of the letters I'd written earlier. Inside are the final documents for the sale. But not just the sale. The transfer. My daughter stepped closer. "Transfer to who?" "Not to either of you," I said, my voice steady. "Half the proceeds go to the Community Land Trust. Affordable housing for families who actually take care of each other. The rest funds scholarships under your father's name. His real legacy. Not this house." The silence that followed wasn't shock. It was disbelief. The kind that twists in the chest when people realize they've run out of options. Her husband's face reddened. "You can't do that. It's our inheritance." I looked him dead in the eye. Inheritance is what's left behind by love, not entitlement. You had neither. He slammed his palm against the table. The letters jumped from the vibration. "You've lost your mind, old woman." "Maybe," I said softly. But at least I found my voice. My daughter's breathing quickened. "Mom, please, we're your family." I met her gaze, the same blue eyes that used to light up when she was little, when she'd ask me to braid her hair before school. "Family," I repeated quietly. Once that word meant warmth. Now it sounds like ownership. She reached for me. I didn't move. "Don't," I said, not unkindly. "Not yet. Let me finish." I placed the letters back on the mantel. "When you get home, you'll find notices from the bank. Your accounts are clear." I closed the joint ones you opened under my name. Her husband's face drained of color. You checked those?" "I didn't have to," I replied. "The bank did. Fraud investigations move faster than family dinners." He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. My daughter turned to him, realization settling in. "You told me she approved that transfer." His silence said enough. The room filled with tension. 3 lives bound by secrets finally stripped bare. My heart pounded, not from fear but release. Decades of quiet endurance untied all at once. I exhaled and stepped back. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I just don't owe you silence." He scoffed. "You think anyone will believe your version?" "I don't need them to," I said. "The truth doesn't ask for witnesses." He started toward the door, muttering something about lawyers, about taking me to court. My daughter hesitated, torn between following him and staying. Her eyes shimmered with something that looked almost like shame. "Mom," she whispered, voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me you changed the will?" "Because you stopped listening long before I stopped talking," I said. For a heartbeat, the house felt suspended, dust frozen midair, sunlight split across their faces. Then quietly she turned and followed him out. The sound of their car pulling away was softer this time, almost reluctant. When they were gone, I locked the door. My hands didn't shake. The adrenaline faded, leaving only calm exhaustion. I walked through each empty room one last time. The faint outlines of furniture on the floor, the smell of lemon cleaner, the echo of what used to be home. In the study, I sat at my husband's old desk and opened his journal, the one with the frayed spine and ink-smudged corners. On the last page he'd written years ago, "She will learn that letting go is its own form of winning." I smiled. "You were right again, Michael." That evening Mark stopped by for the final signature. "It's official," he said gently. "Closing is tomorrow. I can drop off the check then." "Thank you," I said. "Send it directly to the trust account. I won't be here." He nodded slowly, eyes warm with understanding. "Where will you go?" "Somewhere quiet," I said. "Somewhere the noise can't find me." After he left, I brewed one last cup of tea and stood at the window. The sky was streaked with pink and gold, the kind of sunset people photograph but never really see. I watched it until the colors bled into night. When darkness settled, I took the small suitcase from beside the door. Inside were only essentials: a change of clothes, my husband's watch, the old teddy bear for Jake, and the letter addressed to him. I left the keys on the counter, the envelope on the mantel, and the rest behind. Before leaving, I walked through the kitchen one last time. The clock ticked steadily, same as always. For years I'd hated that sound, proof that life went on even when love didn't. Tonight it felt like rhythm. Continuity. Outside the air was cool and clean. The streetlights cast long, soft shadows across the driveway. The sold sign gleamed under the lamplight like quiet punctuation. I touched its edge gently and whispered, "Goodbye." I didn't look back as I drove away. The rearview mirror held the outline of the house shrinking into darkness, the windows glowing faintly like tired eyes closing for the last time. The road curved toward the highway. I rolled the window down and let the wind lift my hair. The night smelled like rain and new beginnings. Somewhere behind me, my past was locking its own door. It was nearly midnight when I reached the coast. The sea was calm, waves whispering against the shore. I found a small inn, nothing fancy, just a place where the woman at the counter smiled without recognition. She handed me a key and said, "Room 5, ocean view in the morning." In the room, I opened the curtains and sat by the window. Moonlight scattered across the water, silver and endless. I took out my notebook and wrote one last entry. They thought revenge meant destruction. But it means reclamation. It means peace. It means finally being the author of your own ending. I closed the notebook and leaned back, listening to the sea's slow rhythm. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like waiting for anyone to call. I didn't need to explain, defend, or forgive. I simply was. At dawn, I walked barefoot on the beach, the sand cool beneath my feet. The tide reached for my ankles and retreated again, gentle, patient, like life itself learning to start over. I looked toward the horizon where the sun was rising, spilling gold across the waves. I whispered, "Thank you." Not to them, not even to Michael, but to myself. The wind carried the words away and I let it. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at my daughter's house. She found it among unpaid bills and unopened mail. The handwriting was mine. Inside just a single line: "You left me out of Thanksgiving. I left you the rest of your life to think about why." No threats, no curses. Just closure. Back on the coast, I rented a small cottage by the lighthouse. Every morning I fed the stray cats that came to my porch. Every evening I brewed tea and watched the sky melt into color. No noise, no demands, no expectations, just the steady hum of peace earned the hard way. Sometimes I thought of Jake and I smiled, imagining him reading my letter when he was older. The one where I wrote that kindness is power and silence can be strength, but only if you choose it. Life didn't end with revenge. It began there. That Thanksgiving, I set one plate, poured one cup of tea, and sat by the window as waves brushed the shore. The world outside was full of sound, distant laughter, wind in the dunes, but inside everything was still. I raised my cup and whispered, "To peace after noise." Then I smiled. A real smile, the kind that doesn't need witnesses, and finally I began to eat. Some silences break you. Others set you free. Thank you for standing with me through this journey of betrayal and quiet revenge. If this story touched your heart, subscribe now and join a community where every woman's truth finds its voice.